Hi, I'm Eleanor, and this is my very first try at at talking about books, being a booktuber. I've given this so many tries, and I keep trashing the videos. I'm a big fan of so many booktubers. I'd love to join the conversation. I've made reading prose a priority for myself this year, 2022. Um, I come from a background of mostly being interested in poetry the last few years, so this is something new for me. And I'm just excited to be here. I thought I'd start with something a little different just to give you an idea of what I'm interested in. And that's why I decided to do an unusual pairing of The Swimmers by Julia Atsuka and No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. And what I found when I read them, I didn't read them at the same time. I read No One Is Talking About This, several months ago. I read The Swimmers. It just came out recently. But The Swimmers immediately reminded me of Lockwood's book. And I thought that's probably something that, maybe something new to add to BookTube. I don't know. So let me explain. Both books are set in the form of 50-50. So the first half of the book is really different from the second half. Both books have a community in the first half that is described in a very somewhat stream of consciousness, but a very musical, some might say poetic way. There's the first person plural. They both deal with a community that's somewhat that is separated from reality as we know it. So for The Swimmers, we have the underground pool, and for Lockwood, we have the portal, which I understand to be the internet. And once both of these writers have written that first half, they feel that they are then able to introduce this other subject matter, which is somewhat connected to the community, but also diverges greatly. And in Atsuka's case, it's the story of a woman who, Alice, who is really experiencing a very difficult type of dementia in a nursing home, and we see it through the eyes. We see the occurrences happening through the eyes of her daughter, and we learn a bit about their relationship as well. With Patricia Lockwood, we have a baby. I call her Lena because there's a dedication at the front to Lena, and I thought, oh, it must be the baby. And she is this baby is born with a neurological problem. It's a genetic, very rare disease. And so you have the neurologists coming in and to both of these second halves. And then while we have the daughter in The Swimmers, we have the aunt in No One Is Talking About This. So already there are so many similarities. And to really drive home this idea that they're so similar when they seem on the surface to be so different, I thought I'd just also read the very last sentence of each of these books because I think it's quite eye-opening and might be interesting to you. So I'll start with The Swimmers. So I'm reading the very, very last sentence, as you can see. And every time when she gets to your face, she looks as if she's about to speak. Then the very last sentence of no one is talking about this. You can actually see when I read it, I wrote, same ending as the swimmers, exclamation mark. Someone would try to unlock it later and see the picture of the baby opening her mouth, about to speak, about to say anything. And I think that really points to how both the story of both Alice and the baby and baby Lena, those two stories are in many respects quite similar in the way they explore how we use language and how language is turned to for explanation, for solace in difficult times. And we have birth on the one hand and death on the other, and the community in between. I really loved both of these books. There's no doubt, I mean, everyone, I believe, would agree that The Swimmers has a much more open, accessible first half. You feel like you're walking into the swimming pool, and it's joyous, and it's also it manages to truly capture the fun of going to a pool regularly and seeing the regulars. And I used to be a swimmer, and it really rang true to me. And I immediately, the next day after I finished The Swimmers, I had to go swim, which I haven't done in a while, well, with COVID as well, of course. No One Is Talking About This has a much more challenging first half. And I have no doubt that puts off majority of readers. And it did me as well. I think generally it doesn't have the clear narrative and the clear descriptive characteristic that The Swimmers does, but at the same time, I think it is very much worth the challenge. If you feel like there's something there in this book, I would definitely, in Lockwood's book, I would definitely encourage you to push on. I would encourage you to skim the first half if need be. I don't think everything that's written always has to be close read, and I don't think everything that's written is meant to be close read. At times, it's meant to be skimmed. Also, I very much encourage you to listen to the audio, which I loved, and I listened to it while I was walking my dog. I have a greyhound, and he's a really easy walker, so I can just kind of get lost in my thoughts, and I loved it. And also, I thought I'd bring in something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, which is the fact that Patricia Lockwood has a background in poetry, and there's something somewhat. There are similarities between the method in which she writes the first half of this book, and the way some quote unquote difficult, challenging poetry is written. And that's a different way of thinking about it. I know quite a few reviews mentioned that the first half attempts to possibly mimic Twitter, and I didn't feel that at all. I felt that the work that Lockwood is doing in that first half is taking the language that's specifically used within the internet, in many different ways, and showing us a different way to read it, and also bringing in a very subtle way, her own personality, her personal background, and the details of her family as a way of introducing the second half. So it does still do. The Swimmers also does that. We have Alice right from the beginning. Although, I mean, she is the only one named, I believe, in the first half. But, it's not absolutely clear in the first half of the Swimmers that we're going to be following Alice's, life, or part of her life. So I thought I'd bring to your attention, in case you are interested in poetry and you're wondering what in the world I'm talking about when it comes to Patricia Lockwood, I'd like to introduce you to a couple of books that came to mind. There's The Weather by Lisa Robertson, and there's 300 Arguments by Sarah Manguso. And I think that if these two books were to, have a baby, that baby would look very much like the first half of this book. And I'll show you. I'll try to explain what I mean. I thought I'd just open it randomly. This is what the weather. A lot of what the weather looks like. It looks like prose, but it's not. And it has a rhythm and a musicality to it. It might remind you actually more of the Swimmers, especially there's a chapter, I think it might be the second or third chapter, where there's the paragraphs each start with I remember, she remembers. Actually, let me find that, because that could be really interesting as well. For example, in the one paragraph, so I'm on page 82 of The Swimmers. She remembers that when your father was courting her, he was always on time. She remembers thinking that he had a nice smile. He still does. She remembers that when they first met, he was engaged to another woman. She remembers that other woman was white. She remembers that other woman's parents did not want their daughter to marry a man who looked just like the gardener. There's a certain musical rhythm to it. There's no doubt that Julia Atsuka is working, with that in her book. And to me, there's no doubt that Patricia Lockwood is doing the same thing. It's just that she's adding something else to it as well. So, sorry, I've got carried away now. So where was I? I don't know. I'm not sure what that other page was. I'll start another page. A beautiful morning. This is from The Weather. A beautiful morning. We go down to the arena. A cold, wintry day. We open some purse. A day is lapsing. Some of us light a cigarette. A deep mist on the surface. The land pulls out. A dull mist comes rolling from the west. This is our imaginary adulthood. Again, I mean, this looks quite similar to The Swimmers that I read, but it looks and sounds quite similar. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that doesn't sound at all like Patricia Lockwood. Well, it does, except she brings this into it as well. So let me introduce you to Sarah Manguso, who wrote 300 Arguments. And this is where the aphorisms come in. The internet, social media is filled with aphorisms. I believe so is this book. I mean, I have to go back and look, but that's my gut feeling from my memory. And this is what 300 Arguments looks like. And the blurb on the back is actually really, really funny. It says, think of this as a short book composed entirely of what I hoped would be a long book's quotable passages. So, I'll give you an example. Here, page 38. A false compliment can land if the recipient wishes it were true. I didn't do it for the money, says my friend who appeared in a pornographic film. I did it for the shame. You can choose your friends, but not your friendships. And so you're probably thinking, well, okay, so, I mean, that's not poetry. Well, many people do consider, you know, this book a kind of poetry, just a different kind. And what Sarah Manguso is doing by bringing to our attention the way we think in aphorisms and the way we trick ourselves to make life, to understand, to make ourselves believe that we understand life and we understand language, I think that's what Patricia Lockwood is doing. She's added that to the musicality and the poetry that, you know, someone like Lisa Robertson is using, and also that Julia Atsuka is using, absolutely. And then there's a third element in Lockwood's creation, because she also brings in what I find to be very funny and very witty. Obviously, that, you know, not everyone will feel that. Okay, so I think that's basically all I wanted to say. I highly recommend both of these books. In the next video, I am hoping to discuss another pairing of books, Vladimir, which just came out, and an Aussie book that recently came out called Love and Virtue. So if you're interested, check back in soon. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.